we do know that we have another session running at 7 o'clock, which many of you are most likely to stay on for, and that is our Year 9 Subject Information Night for 2017. So we'll try and work to a fairly tight schedule, because we'll have a pile of parents coming in, hopefully at around about 10 to 7. We should be finished up by then. So please don't be confused as you're going and people are coming. We thought quite carefully about the best timing, and obviously with parents being very busy, we tried to put 2 in one night to save having to come out to AIS on 2 occasions. He'll kill 2 birds with 1 stone, so you're going to go away with lots of information if you're here for both nights. I do need to pass on Mr. Cassin's apologies. He really wanted to be here to welcome you tonight. He's absolutely fine, though he's at the hospital because we had a visitor on campus this afternoon who took a terrible fall. So he has called me about 10 minutes ago and asked me to share with you his apologies. The reason he wanted to be here tonight is that part of tonight's mathematics IGCSE session is that we are working very much in our partnership with parents to ensure that they are all up to speed with the many curriculums that we offer here at the school, and to also explore our teaching and learning. So our teaching and learning committee has been working with the elementary school and the secondary school, for some of you that may have children across both sub-schools, to provide a variety of information of evenings. And he's been very proud of ensuring he's been here for the opening of all of them. This is the first one that he has missed, so he'd like me to make sure I pass on his apologies. My name, just in case some of you don't know my face or who I am, is Fiona Johnston, and I have the privilege of being the head of this wonderful school. And I'm very excited tonight to be able to pass over to an exceptional head of mathematics. I've been in education for 23 years, and I have to say that Kat Huxtable is the best mathematics head of department. And I'm not saying this just to be nice, Kat, but she's an exceptional head of department and brings with her a huge wealth of knowledge and experience in mathematics, both at international schools, and of course when you hear her accent, you'll hear she's also British. She provided an information session last year for our parents, mostly our Year 8s and our Year 9s. So if any of you were here last year, you may hear some familiar comments and some familiar ideas tonight. But for many of you, we do appreciate it's your first time perhaps to find out about the IGCSE. So without any further ado, I'm going to hand over to Kat. I know that she's factored in plenty of time for questions at the end, so please don't hesitate to be brave and put up your hand if you've got some questions towards the end. Alternatively, Kat will certainly be around for the last 15 minutes while our next round of parents are arriving. You can certainly catch her one-on-one if you've got some individual questions specific perhaps to your individual son or daughter. So without any further ado, I will hand over to our Head of Mathematics, Catherine Huxtable.
Fiona's a bit taller than I am, as you may have guessed, so I hope everyone can hear me. I don't like using these things. Look, I've got quite a loud voice and I tend to move around a bit. So I'll try and make sure that you can all hear me, and I'll try and catch any questions as we go. Now you see a quick outline of the evening. One of my main roles is to introduce you to the structure of the GCSE, because it is likely to be different to something that you've come across before. So we'll start off with that so that you understand what we're dealing with. We'll run through how it transitions from the Australian National Curriculum, which obviously we have from years 6 to 8. In there we will also discuss grade boundaries, how the grade boundaries are going to change. I think that's an important feature for you to get to grips with and to understand. So please do ask any questions as we're going through if there's anything I'm not touching on at that point. I will leave room at the end as well, but please do feel that you can ask as we go. We'll then discuss the placement of students. How do we recommend to you which course is going to be better for your son or daughter, and how you can support your children through this process, because there is a little bit of stress associated with it. We're trying to do our level best to bring that down, and that part of the process is this information evening. So thank you very much for coming. It helps us enormously if you understand just in how the course is structured, what we're doing with your children, how we're grading, and those kind of basics will help you in communicating with us to say, look, I don't understand why this has happened. We've got a common shared background. And and then obviously questions at the end. Okay, so please come on in, be welcome. You can sit anywhere you like, although the seat at the front is obviously a favourite avenue here. Okay, Cambridge IGCSE 0607 is the code. It's a little bit, you might think, well, why do I need to know that? It's a bit boring information. But it has more than one syllabus. And the syllabi are very different. So it is important that we understand which one we're following. So 0607 we're following. We've got reference to this on our curriculum page on Connect. So don't feel like you have to memorize it. But just realizing that there is a different syllabus, this is the one we're following. There are 2 levels available, core and extension. All levels are assessed externally at the end of the 2 years. This is what the IGCSE is. However, we obviously assess your children as they're going through the program. So anything that happens in year 9, anything that happens in year 10, is early year 10, is internal assessment. The IGCSE itself is assessed at the end of 2 years. So coming up now, this November, there will be 3 papers that the students will be sitting. And that comprises the entire IGCSE exam in mathematics. So any reports that you get from us in year 9 will be totally based on our assessment, in-house assessment, and our formative judgment about how your children are doing. The papers are broken down here, core and extended. Both have 3 papers. The difference in the papers is largely in the duration. And obviously the duration ties into the content. So you'll see that for core, there's papers 1, 3, and 5, culminating in 3.5 hours, so cumulative, it's a 3.5 hour exam. Extended is a 4.5 hour exam. So if we just look at it from that basis, even doing easy maths, let's just do 3 hours versus 4 hours, there's a 25% difference in the time. So you can see straight away that that implies there's going to be quite a bit of difference in the content of both papers. And by that I mean the quantity. So there is some overlap. Okay? All of the core material will be examined in the extended exam, plus the extension material. So there is a significant amount of overlap there. Core papers are graded from C to G, C being the highest grade. It doesn't go higher than that. Now that's a bit alien to us with an Australian curriculum background, because it goes all the way up to A. Everyone can go all the way up to an A. The core paper is not, doesn't go up that high. The highest grade you can get is the C, and that is an excellent grade to get on the core paper. The history of this exam is that it's based in British academia. And in Britain, C is considered a matriculation grade. So I'm just giving you this as background because, of course, unless your children go to university in Britain, this bit won't really matter to you much. But in the UK, to get into university, you have to have a grade C in mathematics. If you don't get it, you have to reset. Okay? They're quite strict on it. So that grade C, from a British perspective, is considered the jewel in the crown. As long as you get the C, you're off to university. Now, obviously, if you want to study maths at university, one would hope you were going to get higher than a C. But a C grade is the matriculation grade, it's the pass grade. So that's why we will sometimes say to you, we're good. They're tripping along great at the moment, things are going really well. They're on a C, maybe in year 9, they've got a C for that assessment. And sometimes the parents are like, that's not good. A C, but that's terrible. They've always been getting A's. So part of what we're trying to share with you tonight is that that may be okay at that point in time. And it is considered a good grade. Extended goes A star down to E. Okay, so if you are a higher ability student and you're thinking of going on to do studies in university that are going to have a higher component of maths, then obviously you're thinking in terms of your senior study, you want to do a higher level of maths as well. So the A star, A, B grades are going to be the important ones for those students. The course itself does align, perhaps surprisingly, quite well with the Australian national curriculum. We're quite fortunate with mathematics, it being the universal language. The main differences that you find between Britain and Australia, this international program, is not that the topic is any different, it's just which units they decide to study and which units they decide to leave out. That's the main difference that we find. So that means it aligns well with the Australian curriculum. You'll see I put down the bottom, year 9 and 10 for core, and 9, 10, and 10A for extended. So the Australian curriculum does have a level 9, a level 10, and a 10A. The 10A is considered their extension material. Okay? That's the very hardest stuff back in Australia. And the students studying that are the ones that will expect in HSC or whichever part, Victoria, whichever part that you're living in and going on to. That 10A bit is the bit that the extension students should be studying if they want to go on to a higher level of maths. Okay? A lot of students just study 10. They don't study 10A back in Australia. A lot of students. 10A is not aimed at the general population. Okay? So when we look at extended then, we see that 10A is included in the extended program. So we actually have a lot of students studying that extra component, that 10A stuff. And it tends to be the A-star A material. It's quite challenging. Quite a bit of it actually occurs in the first year of year 11. First 6 months of year 11. So the students will get to see it again. This is why it prepares them, and that's HSC or IB. It prepares them quite well for year 11, but it does mean, because they're studying it in year 10, that comes with added challenges. They may not always be mature enough to cope with it at the level of study it needs. So there's a few things around that that we have to be honest about and say, you know, when we're supporting students, these are concerns we have. And that's a general overview for 2 papers. Now, papers 1 is a non-calculated paper, so it's a shorter duration. Similarly, paper 2. So 1 and 2 are this non-calculated papers. So they're the equivalent in terms of core and extended. The paper 3 and 4 is a calculated paper, and it requires a graphic calculator. So in year 6, 7, and 8, we use a scientific calculator. In year 9 and 10, we use a graphic calculator, and we recommend the Texas 84. Okay? Now, if the students don't have that calculator, they are at a distinct disadvantage on this course. The course definitely, certainly in the papers 3 and 4, writes questions to assess how well the students can use this tool. And it's largely based around the graphing capabilities of the calculator. It's a great learning tool, as we're going through anyway. And it also prepares them largely for IB, I've got to be honest. HSC does not use this graphic calculator at the moment. There is a bit of a rumour going on that may change, but it won't change for your schools. I wouldn't have thought it would change in the next couple of years. It takes time for the HSC to roll through and change things. So at the moment, there are no graphic calculators in HSC, but there are at every level in IB. So all 3 level studies will use the graphic. So the students will go on already knowing how to use it. Any questions about the structure? No? Okay with that? Yeah.
So the 9 and the 10 in both core and extended, is it that they're doing 10A in year 10?
Largely.
Okay, so
Yeah. Not exclusively, there's a little bit. There are little bits in year 9 that would be considered to be 10A. But largely it's now. Yeah, it is. It's sort of February, March, April. We need to get a certain level of mathematical maturity before we can introduce some of those subjects.
and is there an opportunity if you've got a year 10 in extended but it just doesn't work out and drop back to the core?
We'll discuss that when we come to discussing support. Yes, definitely. We have to keep looking at the students and how they're coping. Yeah.
Is it fair then to say that if your child wanted to do extended maths in year 11 or 12, they really need to be doing extended in 9 and 10?
Yes. And usually that's what we find anyway.
Look, my son's in 9. Is he already on this program? Or
So what we
which
do.
one is he on?
Okay, well, I'll just flick through, because I will come to that. When we discuss how the students are placed, then we'll come to that. So I'll just explain the assessment first, if that's okay, then I'll come back to the question.
You mentioned that some of the topics aren't necessarily the same. So
Do you need between core and extension?
between IGCSE and
the end of the course, those 3 exams, that's it. Okay? But obviously for us, we need to see how students are doing, and you need to see how your sons and daughters are doing. So we're obviously reporting to you on a regular basis all the way through year 9 and through this first section of year 10. Okay? So in year 9, of semester 1, we have 3 assessments. Semester 2, we have 3 assessments. The assessments tend to be on units, so it may be 1, 2, 3 units, depending on the length of the unit. We've obviously got a half-yearly exam built in there for year 9, and that comes in early term 3. So it'll be on everything that they've studied to date, and it gives them an idea of how they're travelling. When we get into year 10, the big one is, I'll put week 3 there, that's to be confirmed, but it should be around about week 3 in February. Okay, so week 3 is our school calendar. So just for you to know, it's the 3rd week back, so we'll be in February by that time. And they're going to get an exam that will cover all of the year 9 content. So this gives us a very good indicator of where they're positioned. So in referring to, how we're monitoring and are they on the right course, these are definite points that we will be looking to see how the students are coping. Are they still on track? Is this still the right course for them to be? And we'll be communicating with you. So it shouldn't come out of the blue to you that we suddenly say, look, it's all gone a bit wrong, and this has come out of the blue, because we can see as they're going along, as they're coping in class, and obviously we've had parent-teacher conferences as well. So there should be plenty of opportunity for us to monitor how they're going. The final exam, in November, that gets published around about now, actually. We've just received a draft timetable, so we're in June, and we've just got the timetable through for November. That's the formal one for the example, so that does come out reasonably early. And as I say, course review takes place after every examination and in between, actually, to make sure the students are well placed. So that's how our internal assessment is structured. Okay? We try and give them as much practice and opportunity as we can as we're going through the course. And all of our assessments from day 1 will use past paper questions to get them into the swing of it. And that may sound a bit harsh, but early on in year 9, we'll be doing topics like percentages, for example. Now, we've been studying those. Year 6, year 7, year 8. You get into year 9. We start to be a bit more applied, require a bit more application of our knowledge. It starts to be less kind of straightforward skills, so more problem solving. They've got the skills though, it's not something that's brand new to them, so it's a case of let's look at how the IGCSE forms it, what sort of problems do they present you with. So they get the opportunity to see how they're going to be assessed in the November of year 10. They get the opportunity to see snapshots of that regularly through year 9 and through year 10. Okay, so as I've mentioned, it's the transition from Australian curriculum, because we've matched up that yes, the content in 9 and 10 is fairly similar, but how do they transition actually from 6, 7 and 8? There are 1 or 2 things that are in the IGCSE in year 9 that they expect students to have studied in year 8, and those things are not in the Australian curriculum until year 9. Just a few of them. So that's okay. We've identified them, we've mapped them back, and we've made sure that they're covered in our year 8 curriculum. So with your sons and daughters being in year 8 at the moment, you'll see that we're assessing them according to Australian curriculum standards. But what we will do is throw the odd bit in there that helps prepare them for year 9. So while that's not officially on the Australian curriculum for year 8, because it's in year 9, we've just brought it forward and made it into an edible form, if you like, for the current year 8 to be able to manage. It's not a lot, they're not huge topics, so it's very doable for us to get through that. So that's how we make sure that the students are prepared, coming through in 6, 7 and 8. So when they hit year 9, there's a bit of revision needed, there always is, but they should be ready to take on the new topics that we're going to study. As I mentioned there's a greater application now of rather than just routine problems, routine skills, it's a greater application of knowledge, more problem solving. This can sometimes find out some students who are not great at reading questions, who are, tend to dive in, see a couple of numbers and just go, I can do that, I know how to do that. And then we have to get them to step back and to isolate the information so their comprehension skills come into play a bit more as well. So we try and, as we're going through, we try to teach them techniques about underlining keywords, trying to isolate the key information, make sure you're working through with it. So all of that is part and parcel as we're going through. We're trying not just to teach them the content, but how to actually understand what they're being asked to do. And I've already mentioned the assessments based on possibly the questions from the outset to give them practice. Now, how do we place our students? This is, gentleman there said, how do I know what my son or daughter's course is? Well, we monitor your children going through year 8 quite closely. We will be, at the end of the year, they will sit an exam. So we obviously take that into account. But we also have a whole host of data available to us. So we've got PAT, we can get that plan that traces back from year 7. So although that's not in year 8, it gives us a good indication of ability. And we've got the teacher, which is very important because students don't always show their true colours. And the teachers will sometimes say, no, I know we've got more to give here, we've got more to get. So, even if a student doesn't perform brilliantly in the year 8 exam, if all of the other data is supporting that they have more ability, we won't just say, oh, well, they can do very well in that one exam. We don't base it just on one piece of data. So we're trying to take all of the bits in together to make sure the students are correctly placed. This bit is important. So we really try our best to get it right. Now, we're not always going to get it right first off, which is why we will be saying to you guys, help us out here in terms of if your child is placed, for example, on extension and is finding it stressful, is struggling, then we would be expecting the teacher would be picking this up and communicating fine. However, if you're noticing it, they're not saying much, they don't like to talk about it, they're not coming to see the teacher, but then we would say to you, please let us know if there are things going on behind the scenes. Sometimes we have students who have tutors. If this applies to your son or daughter, fantastic opportunity, great to get someone to help. But let us know, because if a student comes in with a nicely done piece of work, and we don't know that they may have got some extra help at home, we don't know how long it's taken them to do it, and that they needed that extra assistance because they're performing in class and they've put in a lovely piece of work. So it's useful for us to know, say, yeah, they've got it now, that's great. But they had to get, we do have a tutor, just letting you know. And then we go, okay, we know that they need that extra assistance, and it helps the teacher keep an eye out to make sure that they're picking stuff up in class as well. So bits of information like that are helpful if that is your position, not that it isn't for everyone.
Can I just ask you, you're transitioning back to year 10?
Yes, to Australia.
What is the best bet to keep your options open going back into that curriculum?
Well, I can only speak from my knowledge is based around New South Wales.
New South Wales.
Yeah, okay. So they've got levels 5.1, 5.2 and 5.3 that they study in New South Wales. So the extension would be essentially 5.3. Okay? So if your son or daughter was on extension but finding it a bit of a challenge, then they would probably transition back and do 5.2. Core would line up with the lower half of 5.2 and 5.1. So it's not a direct slide across.
No.
Now, it largely depends on the individual. I'm happy to talk to you about it in depth because it really does depend on the individual and what they want to do, etc. So, yeah, sure, happy to. Okay, so data, we use it as much as we can. However, we also want to take the student's personality, work ethic, all of those kind of things into account. So we put all this picture together at the end of year 8, and then we will recommend to you if we think your child is better off considering the core course. If we don't contact you to say, look, this is our recommendation, we've thought about it long and hard, then everyone goes on to the extension. So if we've contacted you to say it's core, then you've got the ability to come back and say, I'm not totally sure about this, there's other reasons, or or yes, that's great, fantastic. But that's the default is extension, and we contact you to say we would recommend core. So that's how we approach it. Now, the future pathways have to be considered. The extension course, as I've already mentioned, is not for every student. It's not designed for every student. The core course, the percentages there are indicating how many students internationally will study IB studies. So IB studies is of the three levels of study in the IB. You've got higher level, standard level, which is a middle course, and then studies, which is still considered equal in value to study to the standard level, but is a bit easier, it's a bit more approachable. Okay? About 40% of all students doing the IB will do the studies course. So it's quite a large component. On the HSC side of things, we have extension mathematics, mathematics in the middle, and then general mathematics. And about 50% of all the New South Wales students entering for HSC Maths will be studying general mathematics. So if your child is doing core, then that would be their typical route when they get to year 11. Either general maths in HSC or studies for IB. And the core course is still not an easy course. It just doesn't have the large content, so it's the volume of content, and it doesn't have those very, very harder topics in it. But it still doesn't mean that it's an easy course that has no value. It definitely has value, and it prepares them very well for either of these two options. If your child is studying extension, then we would basically, they're able to go and do studies or general, of course. But their options then are dependent largely by how well they achieve. In brackets are our suggested matriculation guidelines. So if a student gets a B+ in extension a B or better, beg your pardon, so a B, an A or an A star in the extension course, we would recommend they do either middle or higher tier of maths. We would steer them away from IB studies in general maths, certainly in the first instance. So to study for IB higher level, we are really looking for an A or an A star. On the HSC side, to study extension mathematics, we're looking for the A or the A star. Okay? To study for the middle tier courses, now these are still what we call calculus courses, which have a lot of merit. We are looking for a B grade or higher. But of course, if you get an A or an A star, we would generally encourage you to aim as high as you can. Okay? If you get a B grade, we would be aiming you for the middle courses. So C grades in extension and core, we would be advising to try IB studies or maths. Now, there is a bit of a dilemma here, because of course we get some students who realize at the end of year 10, that didn't go as I planned, and I had a great time in year 9, and the beginning of year 10 wasn't too bad either. I was having a jolly old time, great friends in school, loved it, loved every minute of the day, probably didn't work as much or study as much as I perhaps should have. And then they come to the exam and they realize they have a last spurt of studying, and we had it last year, a last frantic spurt in the last 2 months, study. So they kind of rescued it a bit, but they didn't get those grades that they wanted. They didn't get that B grade. There is no automatic entry then onto these courses. We would be recommending saying, well, studies or general. So a few of them were invited to interview. A few of them said, actually, I really, really, really want to study that middle course, because I've now realized in university, the course I want to do requires this level of maths. And I really, really need to get on the course. So our approach to that is not, we don't just shut the door and say no. Our objective here is to support the students as much as we can to do the right course to get them where they want to go. These grade boundaries are there to give them an idea really of what level of understanding and what work is required. We have to be honest. You are going to struggle, one will struggle, if you go for higher level IB maths or extension maths and you've got a B at IGCSE. You're going to struggle, you're going to find it a real challenge. But if the students come to you saying, yeah, but I didn't really work last year, and all our data is saying, is supporting that, and the teachers say, yeah, they were having, like, spoke to mum and dad. Mum and dad didn't know what to do with them. They were sort of, you know, doing a bit of homework, weren't really studying, because we are talking about teenagers. So, you know, of course, we sit them down and we do a bit of a contract and say, okay, do you know what you're getting into? Right? They need to be very, very clear about what they're opting into here. And we tend to give them a go. All right? But it will be on a bit of a contract. We're going to be watching. We're going to be looking to make sure that those mistakes that you made in 9, maybe 10, are not replicated and going on to year 11. Because, of course, we've then got a duty of care. If a student's on a wrong course, the level of stress is not good. Okay? They're falling behind. It can affect their self-esteem. They once thought they were quite good at maths, but now because they didn't do enough work, there's, you know, all of these kind of things. Or, equally, they are doing great. They're doing great work for us. But we find that they are working pretty much all the time on maths. Now, we are quite, you know, we're mathematicians. We're like going, yes, that's great. Every day should be a maths day. But of course, that's not very helpful for them. It means that their other subjects are going to start to suffer. So, as much as they may be doing okay in our course, you then look across the board and say, all the other subjects are really, really struggling. So, it becomes more of a kind of general welfare issue. Are you going to get to where you want to go, even if you study this level of maths, but everything else is failing? So, you have to then start playing a bit of a strategic game. But you, of course, will be involved in that conversation. So, it's not just us and then kind of going, you know, come on, pull your socks up. It's a joint effort. So there's a lot to be considered in placing the students on the right course, in monitoring them to make sure that they're going okay in whichever course they're in. Does anyone have any questions about this? I'll show you the grade boundaries now, because that can be a bit illuminating. So we've got here the Australian curriculum ones. Now, obviously, that's not set by the Australian curriculum in Australia. That's the R version. That's the AIS. Okay. And we go all the way up to A plus at 95. My goodness, if you got 95, you'd probably be, you know, verging on almost best in the world in one of the subjects, I would think, at IGCSE. But 95, we get lots of students that get that in year 6, 7, and 8. It's great. Let's look along at year 9 extension to start with. The A star's not far off, it's come down to 90 now. You'll see that the C grade has come down from 60 at, for the Australian curriculum courses to being 50 now at IGCSE. Now again, these grade boundaries for the year 9 extension are internally set by us. We've also got the year 9 core. Now you can see that to get C on a core assessment program, you're going to need 70%. Alright? So because that's the highest grade, obviously you need to get that grade boundary. The C's are equivalent, and they're considered to be equivalent by the IGCSE board, by universities. The C is the C. Alright. Now let's look at year 10. By the time we get to year 10, we've adopted pretty much the IGCSE published grades. Now these do change each year depending on the cohort. They're not exactly, it's not exactly 84 for an A star every year. That's a bit, that moves around a little bit. So what we did is we took several years and we averaged them out to get a good ballpark for our students to work to. Alright? So let's have a look at the C. To get a C grade, that magic matriculation grade is 39%. It goes up to 40, it can be 42, sometimes it hovers around there. Now what is that saying to us? Well, basically what it's saying is the course is a challenging one. It's very worthwhile, it's got good content, it's got a good level of mathematics, but it is a challenging one. Okay? So compare the C at Australian curriculum, which is 60%, to let's say the 40% IGCSE, it's a big difference. So when your sons or daughters come home at the end of year 9 or that year 10 exam going, oh, I only got 40%, and you're going, what do you mean you only got 40%? It's like, hang on. Not to say we can't do better, but it may not be as bad as it looks when you just look at a percentage, okay? Think about where that will project and where we can move them forward to. That's not necessarily a bad thing. And also it's going to be different for every student, where they're heading, what their ability level is. The year 10 core, the comparative is 65%. these grades, even though we use these through year 9 and year 10, what we're trying really hard to do is to move the students away from doing one assessment. Let's say the first assessment after the first 6 weeks is probably going to be on, it's going to be a revisional number, it's going to be some percentages and some arithmetic stuff, a bit of financial maths, some of it's revision, some of it's new. And they come home and they go, woohoo, I got an A star, 84%, nailed it. This is going to be easy. So we were trying to encourage them to take a step back and equally not come home going, I only got a C, I'm devastated. I only got a C on that. That means, you know, I'm no good at maths. I always thought I was good at maths. That doesn't make sense. These grade boundaries on an individual test doesn't really make sense. Now the reason for that is that a holistic exam has got a certain proportion of E grades, D grades, C grades, and higher questions. They've got kind of proportions of all of them. If we're just analysing them on one narrow test, that test could be, so I gave one to my students recently, that had nothing on it lower than a B grade. Nothing. Because they were the topics we were studying. So some of my students are like, oh, I was really hoping to do better on this one. I only got 50%. And I'm like, you got 50% of every A, B, and A star question right. That's not bad. That is not bad. So it's all relative to the level of difficulty of the paper. So the only way we can honestly say that the grade boundaries make sense, really, is on the larger exams, not the unit tests. It doesn't really tell you much about the unit tests. The way to look at the unit test is more of a diagnostic frame of mind. So just look at it and say, okay, I got 45%. All right, I could do better than that. I would like to do better than that. Set a sensible goal. How about I just aim, the next time this comes through, I aim for 55 or 60%. I'm not aiming for 80 or 90, just a sensible goal. It can be too overwhelming if we're trying to say I'm here and I'm trying to get here. So just choose sensible bite-sized jumps, an extra 10%. That doesn't sound too bad. And then we get them to look at the tests, what they did know, fantastic, what they didn't know, and get them to prioritize from, I thought I knew it, so I got one mark maybe out of the 4 available. I thought I knew it, but I just made some silly errors. Down to, well, I thought I knew it, but I didn't get a single mark, so I completely missed that boat. Down to, I couldn't even start. I read the question and I really didn't have a clue what was going on. So we try and get them to prioritize on that basis. And actually the ones where they don't have a clue, don't tackle those first. The ones to tackle first are the ones to boost your self-esteem, the ones that you thought you knew, because you're halfway there. And obviously at any stage when they're going through their tests, they come in and they get help. I thought I knew this. This is how I thought I should do it. Where did I go wrong? So there's an element in the lesson of us taking apart these assessments and looking at them and saying, you know, how could we do it better? But of course there's up to 25 students in the room and a 55-minute lesson or 2 55-minute lessons. That's never going to be enough to actually sit and work out if there is a misconception somewhere. So part of what we need the students to do, and you'll see this on the next slide, is start to adopt a more senior mindset. So how you can support your students, our students, your children. A regular study program. I'm sure as parents you would love it if your children just hop, skipped and jumped into the room one day saying, I'm going to do a regular study program without any nagging. I am going to do 20 minutes every couple of days, no problem. But if they could do that, that would be amazing. Because what we don't want is the last minute panic revision. It doesn't work. Or if it does work, it works for very few of them. It doesn't allow them to uncover misconceptions. Where am I going wrong? It doesn't allow them any time to come and get any help because they've done it all the night before. So last panic revision, no. We don't want it. We do send out the assessment notifications and we do give them detail on it. So we're encouraging them to use them as a little tick list. What is going to be in there? What have I covered? What have I revised in 6 weeks? That was 2 months ago. I haven't looked at it in ages. I better go back and look at it. One of the things that students will do is say, yep, that's in the bag. I really understood that. I had all of these writings in class. I answered all the questions. I thought it was fantastic. That was great. I was very, very confident. And then they don't look at it again for 4 months. And then they walk into an assessment and go, well, I knew that, I don't understand where it's gone. But of course, it's not gone, it's just a bit rusty. And because they haven't reflected on it recently, it's not coming back to them as quickly as they need. Review assessments as diagnostic mindset, I say it again, it's incredibly important. Not a case of, I got it all wrong, what did I know, what bit am I going to focus on? Be very analytical if you like. On Connect, we've actually kind of written these steps out for the students. So there's a exam revision kind of hints page. And it's taken them through step by step. This is what we wanted, this is how you're going to approach it. To try and get them into this kind of routine, this strategy. Now, make early contact with their teacher. Here's one of the issues. When students are in year 6, year 7, and year 8, if they're not good at maths, they try and avoid this type of play. It doesn't matter how nice we are to them, and how hard we try, we make it as fun as possible. I don't like maths, so I'm not coming anywhere near you. So obviously that's a problem. Then we've got students who are like, no, I'm all strong at maths. It's one of my best subjects. I really, really enjoy it, and I've always been able to do it. When we come to year 9, the work is getting harder. That's the nature of it. Of course it is. As we go through to senior school, work will get harder. At some point, talent alone doesn't just get you there. You have to think about the concept. Why is it working? Question it. Try and work it backwards. Unpick anywhere that your understanding breaks down. What we sometimes find with very strong students is they don't like to admit that. They don't like to admit that perhaps they didn't get it the first time around, and they view coming back to see us as a weakness. But actually we're saying, no, a strong mathematics student, and I don't mean strong as in you get 90%, I mean a strong student as a learner. Even if they find mathematics a challenge, a strong student as a learner will be willing to come and see us. So we have to change this mindset from the only people that go and see the teachers are ones that are really struggling and no good at the subject, because that's not true. A senior mindset is, I need to try and take this apart. I want to unpack this. I've got to try and learn how it works, and I didn't necessarily get it in the class. Some of the topics that we do are challenging. They are not necessarily going to get it all on one sweep through in a 50-minute session. We'll be sending them away and saying, have a think about it. We'll continue next lesson. So we're trying to develop the willingness to sort of say, I'd like to talk to you about this in a bit more detail. Can you just run me through this again? And that's the very strong students as well as the very weak, because now it's that senior, it's a more senior mindset about unpacking how you learn. So when we get to year 9, we do often find that students don't always know, haven't quite yet discovered how they best learn. So part of the experience of year 9 as well is, how does it work for me? How do I do it? How do I learn maths? How do I revise maths? Do I just sit and read? No. I have to do. But some students will just try and kind of read examples and think that they, so it's a learning journey for them as well. So if you're noticing this or you're noticing that it's stressful at home, please encourage them. Come in and see us. That's the thing to do. They can email their teacher, recess. We don't put on regular every Wednesday because we have an open house. So they can simply email saying, I didn't get it, are you free, lunchtime, recess? Teacher will email back saying, yeah, I'm on duty at recess, come at lunch, no problem. And it works. And that way they can get 5 or 10 minutes dedicated. Usually it's 5 minutes. It's usually very, very quick when they get that penny drop moment. But it's 5 minutes of uninterrupted one-to-one time that does the trick for them. So please, the best thing you can do to help us and to help them is encourage them to start doing this from an early stage. Great strengths and weaknesses we've already discussed. And set sensible improvement targets. Now, we have a program called My Maths. We do use it in 7 and 8. And it goes all the way up to senior years. So we can set stuff up here, or we can set stuff, maybe if they've got gaps. Perhaps they realised, actually, I was unwell when we did percentages in year 7, and I never really got it. So that's okay, we can take them back. We can devise an individual support program for them using My Maths. We set homework on it, as a regular class thing, but we can easily, if we have identified weaknesses, usually through the diagnostic approach on assessments, we can set them extra work on it. So that's very, very easily done, and we can use that to try and fill in any gaps they may have. So So it's been a whirlwind to take you through it. I'm conscious of the time because it's 6:45. So we have 15 minutes. That's totally over to you to ask questions. The only thing I would ask is if you've got something very specific that you would like information on, like particular to your child, then please feel free to ask me on a one-to-one.
I'm not aware of the background. Maybe you can explain to us the decision for the school to adopt this program versus the Australian.
That wasn't a decision made at the mathematics level, so that was a whole school strategy level, and it was made 4 years ago.
Would you like me to answer that? I'm happy to.
Yes, there you go.
Right,
Yeah.
Sure. I'll do it as a quick one because obviously we want to focus on maths. Hi, I'm Katie O'Hara and I'm Deputy Head of the Secondary School and have oversight for the curriculum in the secondary school. When we were looking at which curriculum we were doing the MYP at that point in time, so the students go from PYP to MYP, and we knew we wanted to bring in the Australian curriculum. It works naturally for us for students transitioning in and out. Over 60% of our students move from Australia. And we knew that we're moving students into the HSC and we'd introduce the IB as well. So we needed to have a curriculum that we knew could meet the academic rigour of being able to go into the IB, and we also wanted something preparing students for IB and HSC, so for matriculation. So we spent a lot of time investigating which would be the best option. Now, also recognising that 40% of our students within the school are also international. So the IGCSE, which is the next session for those of you who are staying with us, is the one that we looked at. It's the most common use or the most international. It works on a 2-year, so it gets the students used to doing a 2-year course while I have the exam, which is perfect preparation for matriculation. Also the fact that it does have external examinations. So our students get to have, in year 9 and 10, that process of getting used to doing an external exam, coming into an exam hall, studying a 2-year course. So our current year 12s are our first students going through doing the IGCSE, and we look forward to seeing the benefit that that would have had. So I can say as a teacher who has been teaching students coming into year 11, those students who've been through the IGCSE are fantastically prepared. So we'll get to see when we look at results and how that's affected, but also talking to the students. A lot of them said they hated it when they were in it, they'll be honest, when they were doing year 10, they really didn't like it, and they're so pleased that they did it, and we're hearing that feedback time and time again. So that's a quick answer. I'll let you get back to math, but I am here if you have any questions.
Any other? Anyone? No? Wow. Okay.
So we do have the 10 minutes of transition. So